This example, we want to write a Java program that will read student names for 4 students and store them in a one-dimensional array. Also, for each student, we want to read marks for 3 quizzes and store them in a 2-dimensional array. So we have 2 arrays, one for the names and one for the quizzes for each student. Assume that each quiz mark is out of 10. And we have a reason to mention that because the second part is asking for something related to the mark. Your program should output the following. First, the program should print the student name followed by the average of quizzes. Second, we need to print the student name who has a mark above or equal to 9 for each quiz. First of all, let us understand what is requested from these 2 parts. Then we will show you how to implement them in Java. Consider the following students with their marks in the 3 quizzes. We have Ahmed, Saeed, Majid, and Zainab and their marks for the 3 quizzes. Now for the first part, it is asking to print the student name followed by the average of quizzes. How to do that manually? Now if you want to print the name followed by the average of the quizzes, we will go for the first student Ahmed, and then we will add his quizzes 10 plus 8 plus 10. The sum is divided by 3 and we print the average. So we print Ahmed and then we print the average by visiting the first row. Then we go to Saeed, we print Saeed, and also we add 8 plus 9.5 plus 7.5 and the sum is divided by 3 and we print the result. So notice that we are visiting the data row by row. Therefore, to answer the first part, we need to process the 2-dimensional array row by row. Now for the second part, it is asking to print the student name who has a mark above or equal to 9 for each quiz. Let's consider quiz 1 as an example. Now Ahmed has a score 10. And since it is above or equal to 9, then we print Ahmed. Then we go for Saeed. Saeed has got 8, so we should not print the name Saeed. But for Majid, Majid has scored 9, which is above or equal to 9, so we print Majid. But for Zainab, her score is 7, which is not above or equal to 9. Therefore, her name will not be printed. As a result, for quiz 1, only Ahmed and Majid names will be printed for those who have scores above or equal to 9. And then we go for quiz 2 and do the same. We check for the quizzes. So as you notice that we are visiting the 2-dimensional array column by column for the second part. So for the first part, we need to process the 2-dimensional array row by row, and for the second part, we need to process the array column by column. Here is a sample output for the data we have in this table. For the first part, we print averages. We print the name followed by the quiz average. So Ahmed, the average of the quiz is 9.33, Saeed 8.33, and so on. And for the second part, we display a message, students with marks above or equal to 9 are, and we go for the quizzes column by column. So for quiz 1, we write Ahmed, Majid, and for quiz 2, we write Saeed and Zainab, and for quiz 3, we write Ahmed only because Ahmed is the only one who got a score in quiz 3 above or equal to 9. Let's go to JGrasp and implement this example. Here now we are in JGrasp. First, we need to read the data into the arrays. First, we need to read the names into a 1-dimensional array. And then we are going to read the marks for 3 quizzes for each student and store them in a 2-dimensional array. So let us first define the array for the names. It will be string. And the number of students we have is fixed, which is equal to 4. And we are going to call it name. Or it's better we call it student. We will create the array new string of size 4. Next, we need to create the 2-dimensional array for the quizzes. We are going to call it quizzes, and it should be of type double because you have seen in the example we have 9.5 as a quiz mark. So it is going to be double and it's going to be 2-dimension, and we are going to call the name quiz. So new, and the first dimension will be the number of students, which is equal to 4, and the second dimension will be the number of quizzes, which is equal to 3. This is regarding the declarations. So first we are going to read the names. So here we are going to say reading the names. So we'll create a for loop, and we will start the index from 0, and I will be less than or equal to student.length I plus a plus, and then we are going to display a message to the user to tell the user to enter the name. System.out.println, printing the message, enter the name of a student, and we are going to print the student number, which is going to be I plus 1 to avoid starting from 0, and then we display a colon as an ending of the line. Next, we read the name and save it into the array. So we say student I is equal to read dot next line. So we are going to read complete line for each student. After reading the names, now we need to read the quizzes for each student. So we need to create a loop. As you remember that we are going to process the array row by row for reading. So we will say for integer row equals 0, row less than quiz dot length, which will give us the number of rows, row plus a plus. And then inside we will write the column loop, and we will say for integer column equal to 0, and column is less than quiz of row dot length, and we have column plus a plus. So what we will do for each student, we are going to print a message, the student name, and ask the user to enter the quizzes for this student. So we write a message system.out.println, and we will say please enter 3 quizzes for student, and we need to print the name of the student. So we will end the message followed by the student name, and we will say student, and we will find the student name by row, because the number of rows represents the number of students. So we can use this index as an index to the one-dimensional array for the student names. Then we close the print statement, and it is preferable that we read on separate lines. So the reading will be on separate lines, so this is why we are using a println. Now inside the inner loop, we are going to read the quizzes one after the other. So we will say that the quiz at row and column indices equal to read.next double. So this is how we are going to read the data, which is the 3 quizzes for each student. We print the message saying please enter 3 quizzes for a student, and the student name will be printed, and then the user will start typing the quizzes for that student. For the first part, we need to print the student name followed by the average of quizzes, and this is the sample output. So we need to print first the message averages, then we have the name followed by the average of the quizzes for the first name, for the second name, and so on. So let's go to JGrasp and implement this part. As we discussed before, to implement this part, we need to process the array row by row. So first we will print the message averages, system.out.println, and we write averages. Then we write the nested loops for processing the 2-dimensional array row by row. So we write for integer row equal to 0, row less than quiz.length, because dot length for the quiz array will give us the number of rows, and here we will have row plus a plus, and inside we are going to write the inner loop for the column. So for integer col equal to 0, col less than quiz of row dot length, column plus a plus. So first we need to print the name of the student in each row. So we will say system.out.println. If you remember the output, we only print the name. So we say student row followed by a colon as a message, and then we will have tab to print the average after the tab. Then also we need a variable to compute the average that holds the sum, and I'm going to define it inside double, because we're going to use it only inside the loop, so we don't need to define the variable outside the loop. So we will call it sum. First we have to initialize it at the beginning of each row, because we need to find the average for each student. And then inside the loop, we add all the marks of the quizzes for this student, and we save them into the variable sum. So we say sum equals sum plus quiz row and column. After we exit the inner loop, now we print the average by saying system.out.println, and here we print sum, and the number of quizzes is 3. But it's better that we use quiz row dot length, and it will give us the number of columns, which is the number of quizzes. Why? Because if you change your mind and you increase or decrease the number of quizzes, then there is no need to come to this code and change it. Simply quiz of row dot length will give you the right size. And then we come here and close the bracket, and I think we are done. Let us just remove this extra line. In the second part, we need to print the student name who has a mark above or equal to 9 for each quiz. And this is how our output will look like. We're going to print a message, students with marks above or equal to 9 are, followed by the title for each quiz, and in front of the title of each quiz, we print the name of the student who has marks above or equal to 9 for that quiz. Let's go to JGrasp and implement this part. So now we are in JGrasp. We need to print the student name who has a mark above or equal to 9 for each quiz. As we mentioned that we need to display a message. So system.out.println, and the message is students with marks above or equal to 9 are. And then as we discussed also, that we are going to visit the two-dimensional array, or we are going to process the two-dimensional array column by column. So we are going to write the nested loops accordingly. We say for integer column equals 0, column less than, and then you pick any row, which we are going to say quiz 0, and then we are going to use its length that represents the number of columns, and then we will say column plus or plus. And inside we will write the loop for processing the row. So we say for integer row equals 0, quiz row less than quiz dot length, and we are going to have row plus or plus. Now in here we need to print, as we said, a title for the quiz. So before going into the inner loop, we print a message system.out.print, not a println, because we want to follow the title immediately on the same line, the names of the students. So here we put the title quiz, and now we need to follow it by the quiz number. Now here we say plus, but to avoid starting from 0, we are going to say column plus 1, followed by a column. So here we need to put plus, and we put column. Then inside the loop, the inner loop, which is responsible for visiting the rows, we will say if quiz row column is greater than or equal to 9, then here we need to print the name. So we will say system.out.print, because we need to print the names on the same line. And here we are going to put tab followed by the student name. So we will say student, and don't forget we have to use row because the rows represents the students. Then we close the bracket. Now after we finish, don't forget that we have to go to the next line for typing the title for the next quiz. So here we write system.out.println, which is an empty println because we want to print a new line for the next quiz. This completes the implementation for the second part. So let us test the program. First we need to save it, and we are going to save it into our Raise project. And let us compile it. Hopefully we don't have any errors. There is an error in here. It says a string. Yes, there is an error. I should not specify here the size. We just have to make it empty brackets. And then we compile it again, and again we have another error. This error, we have a spelling mistake for student. Here we should have a student. Let us compile again. Now the program is free of errors. After making sure that it does not have any errors, now let us run the program for testing. We will run the program. Now it is asking to enter the name of student 1, which is Ahmed. Student 2 is Saeed. Student 3 is Majid. And student 4 is Zainab. Now it's asking to enter the 3 quizzes for student Ahmed. It is 10, 8, and 10. And for Saeed, it is 8, 9.5, 7.5. And for Majid, it is 9, 8.5, 7. And for Zainab, it is 7, 10, and 5. And here is the output. Here we have a problem in the output. It's not a big problem. We should use a print for printing the name, not a println, because we want the average to follow the name. But the output, as you see, that it is correct, that for quizzes it's printing the correct names for those who have quiz marks above or equal to 9. So we will go to the name, where we are printing the name of the student, which is here. We should use print only, without using a println. Now we can run the program again for testing, just for a few seconds. So it is Ahmed, Saeed, Majid, Zainab. And for Ahmed we have 10, 8, and 10. And for Saeed we have 8, 9.5, and 7.5. And for Majid we have 9, 8.5, and 7. And finally for Zainab we have 7, 10, and 5. Now it is printing the averages after the name of each student. And this completes the implementation of our exercise.